Hello everyone, welcome. My name's Lisa Jane and I have Darren Hay here. We are going to talk to you about the principle of meditation. And this is our first week in a 7-week series for the 7 principles of self-care. This is a program that will be going each week talking about a principle to help you become the best version of yourself. And so we are going to cover some questions that I have here for Darren. But before we go ahead, I'd like you to introduce Darren and then he can tell us a little bit about himself. Hello, Darren Hay. Thanks for joining. How are you?
No, I'm good. Thanks, Lisa. Thanks for having me.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and the reason why I asked you to come in to be the experienced guest speaker for meditation.
Well, I'm a natural living and health consultant. So I've followed and studied and investigated and practiced natural healing modalities for almost 20 years, but I've been involved in training the human body for a little bit longer than that, my own body through various disciplines and running a couple of different businesses involved with the human body. And I've gone through some health challenges of my own. One was which I had to learn how to walk again after a serious motorcycle accident. And that, coupled with a very intense training regime and coupled with a bit of a party lifestyle, my health really broke down. And intuitively, I realized that pharmaceuticals weren't going to solve the problem, because I'd already been involved with that stream of treatment for my life up till then. And I kind of had this intuitive feeling that somehow cause and effect was involved. And if my body was well before, there was a reason why it was well, and there was a reason why I was unwell now. And if I found out what that cause was, then I could remove it and my body would experience wellness again. So I embarked upon an investigation to find out what those causes were for ill health as well as health, and just kept searching until I found something which I could anchor on as a truth. And I found natural law actually in some disciplines, one of which was natural hygiene, another was nature cure philosophy, and another one was biogenics. And they all taught that the body was self-healing when the causes for health were known and abided by. And that's the essence of natural law, because all life flourishes according to these laws. So the challenge was letting go of what the ego believed was health, or was what the ego believed health, or how the ego believed health was obtained, was letting go of all of that. And being prepared to step off the precipice, you might say, of our fears, because the ego wants to control everything. The ego thinks it has control of its health. Yet if that was true, why does our health break down? And it's actually because the ego doesn't control it. There's a life stream within us which is very intelligent and very wise, and it obeys different laws to our superficial mind. And you have to be prepared to let go, or that superficial mind of yours has to be prepared to let go and surrender into this deeper aspect of life within you in order to affect the healing. And so that's a challenge in and of itself that many people aren't prepared to take, because at that point you have to be prepared to say, well, okay, is life really going to look after me? Is it really going to heal me? If I surrender to it, is it going to heal me? Or do I have to try and poison it with pharmaceuticals or control it with different means? And that's the fear we have to face. And what we discover pleasantly and prophetically and magnificently is if we actually do surrender to life, if we're actually able to summon the courage and take that step, then we find life is always acting for us every single moment that it's this powerful and beneficent force. And once you actually experience that for yourself and you get that understanding and you realize that there is something alive and intelligent and wise within you that we have been living disconnected from, it inspires you to seek a greater connection with it. And that's why I do what I do and why I'm here.
And that's why I contacted you. I know Darren through I met you over 10 years ago. You spoke at a workshop that I had done, and I loved your philosophy because you came to speak about foods and high vibrational foods and quality foods. And that's what got me to start the journey, to start changing my habits. And when I did do that, I started noticing a huge difference in the way that I was thinking, the way I was feeling. And that's why I needed you here in this group, so that you could explain to us how to heal ourselves. And you've done that from going from not walking. How long did it take for you to start walking again?
Well, it actually wasn't that long, because I had smashed the pelvis, or my pelvis, particularly on the right side. I didn't actually damage the joint, but what I'd done was basically smash the upper half of the pelvic bone off on my right side, just clean off. So it was just now a piece of bone flapping there in my pelvis, and all these muscular attachments were pulling in all sorts of different directions, and there was internal bleeding. I'd lacerated the kidney as well, and I'd massive bruising internally through my legs and up my back, and broke the arm in 2 places too, but that was neither here nor there by this stage. So it wasn't the fact that the joint wasn't damaged, but they had to reattach the pelvic bone together. And of course, trauma of all the muscles and the trauma of all that meant there was a complete loss of control of that area, and tremendous amount of pain, because you can't do anything really without bending at the waist. But when when your waist is a swollen ball, and your kidneys, your bladder is swelling up because you're bleeding from the kidneys, and you've got blood clots in your urethra and all these types of things, it's quite a painful experience. You can't move very well when your pelvis is swollen or like that. So, but I was determined not to be an invalid, so to speak, and coming from a very active past. And so I just gritted my teeth and I trained every day. And when my legs initially wouldn't respond, slowly, day by day in the hydrotherapy pool, my leg would start to move an inch. And then it was 1.5 inches, and then it was 2 inches, and then it was 3 inches. And within 3 weeks, I think I was on a single crutch, being able to hobble around on a single crutch. I was out of a wheelchair and hobbling around on a single crutch. And I think within 4 months or so, I was taking my first shuffle run, which was incredibly painful, because the supportive muscle tissue and the scar tissue, everything that's still healing in there, it was incredibly painful, but I was able to do it. So.
Do you feel that it could have healed a lot slower for other people that don't have your mindset?
If you aren't prepared to engage with your body, because your body heals through engaging with it. It's the law, use it or lose it. So, and this is just the law of life within us. It's like life conserves energy. It obeys the law of the conservation of energy, and it won't spend any energy anywhere that it's not required, because it's wastage. So humans are pretty much the only creatures that disobey that law, that waste things just for an abstract idea such as profit or commercial gain. Life everywhere else only does what is necessary. So the life force within you will only do what is necessary. So if you lay obsessed with your pain or paralyzed by your pain, and you won't engage with the healing process, it's going to take a far, far longer time. And in fact, chances are you're not going to come back to the full capabilities that you were before. So you have to kind of meet that pain, use your will to meet that pain, which is, for all intents and purposes, part of your creation. And so on the other side of that pain, you have freedom.
That's right. And when I talk about pain, a lot of people will bring up sufferings. They explain it, that they're challenged or they're going through a hard time or they're feeling pain. But what they're really talking about is suffering, and suffering is just a distraction from the pain itself. Once we stop to reflect and look where the pain is coming from, that's when we can start to release it and have that freedom. So a modality to use is meditation. And that's something that I've been using to help with my nervousness and anxiety. I've been meditating now for 4 years, and I've noticed a huge difference in my mind and body, and also the environment around me as well. So I'd like to get to now talking about meditation, because that's something that you used in that time of were you meditating beforehand, were you, before the motorbike accident?
I had been introduced to meditation very early on. Well, when I say very early on, in my teen years, when I first started martial arts on a more serious basis. Like, my dad introduced us when we were pretty young, somewhere around the ages of 10. We did judo. But later on, once I'd left high school, in fact, I started to go to university. I was doing chemical engineering, and I hated it, actually. And I discovered a martial art because I decided I was a bit of a gangly kid, and I decided I wanted to look after myself or defend myself. And I found this Japanese combat art really appealed to me. And I thought, well, I applied myself to that. No, in fact, I enjoyed doing that more than I enjoyed going to university. So actually, I dropped out of uni to study martial arts full time. And it started my career down the path of training the human body and working with the human body. And so it was in there that the Grandmaster introduced us to meditation. So the teachings of Shinto and Lao Tzu and the Buddha, and taught us a form of meditation. And to be honest, I found it quite difficult and didn't really get it, didn't really understand what it was about. You know, it's kind of, it's a bit foreign to our culture. But, you know, I applied it because we had to apply it as part of our training and to progress. But it wasn't until, you know, and so I did that, but you kind of like, you're not so committed, and you forget about it, and you leave it for a few years. But it wasn't until after the accident and part of my healing and regeneration, which also involved studying natural law. And in doing that, you're reading, you know, who understands natural law better than anybody else. And you go to the mystics and the various masters of the different cultures, because you don't become a master of self unless you understand the laws of your own being, which is natural law. So when you start to read from the masters to understand, you know, how they developed themselves, you know, you have to come across meditation. At some point you come across meditation, and you hear from them how it benefited them. And so you think, well, you know, this is something I really have to do in my life if I want the same result, if I want to self-actualize. And so, yeah, I investigated different types, and I decided upon one which I resonated with, and went down that path.
For me, my experience, I was 19 when I first heard about meditation. Even the word, I didn't understand it. So when I did my research, it means to think. And so all the years of learning different modalities and finding the one that resonated with me, it made me understand that people don't actually really know what meditation is. They think it's just to quieten the mind and become really silent. And then they do it in really quiet places, and they stress out and get agitated and nervous about doing it. But that's just the process to get, you got to get that out of the system so that you can get to the quietness. You can't have it straight away. So for me, when I first started doing different kinds of meditation, I gave in very quickly. So that's why I've created these series so that we can talk a little bit about it to help everyone to understand that you need to look at different modalities, different styles of meditation that's going to suit you. So first of all, let's talk about what is meditation. And I'd love for you, Darren, to explain what meditation is for our members.
Well, for me, my understanding of meditation is that it's an exercise of presence. So it's designed, or it's meant to bring you into a state of greater presence and contact with yourself. But in actual fact, it's more like a deeper aspect of yourself. From my experience, people get around in life believing that they're this very superficial reactionary part of themselves, which we call the ego, which is a very necessary part of ourselves, because without it, we would be defenseless. So, but it's also not the truth or the full truth of who we are. So there's a deeper aspect of ourselves, like a higher mind, that is very much a reality. But most people have either got it quite well buried, or they're so numb or so distracted that they can't tune into its teachings. It's the inner teacher, which is our intuition. So they stay in the superficial level of mind, this reactionary mind, which is always reacting to outside stimuli or challenges, conditioned fears and what have you. And so meditation is an opportunity to become really present and witness that aspect of our mind, the egoic mind in operation. And as soon as you start to identify with that witness rather than the egoic mind, you can start to see the egoic mind as actually just an aspect of you. And automatically you're assuming the identity now of this deeper part of you. And so it enables you automatically to go deeper. And as you grow in presence, or train your presence, which is, a single pointed concentration through any of the different faculties of consciousness, whether it's ears, eyes, the mind, nose, body sensations, and what have you. As you start to train your concentration and you increase your presence, you become more sensitive. You start to encounter deeper layers of your being, which are all still, again, part of the surface level egoic mind. But what you're able to do is witness them for what they are. Stop reacting to their stimuli, and instead start responding to the deeper message from that higher aspect of you, or deeper aspect of you, whichever way what you want to term it. And so you become more responsible rather than reactionary.
Because the reaction part of us is in our subconscious, isn't it? The reptilian brain, the fight, flight, freeze, and that's where we live mostly. Like 80 to 90%, that part of the mind is being used. Is it the 10%, which is the conscious, where meditation takes us to?
I don't know much about percentages, because I think a lot of that stuff we probably haven't got right. I mean, our ability to understand all this and coach it in terms, is still constantly evolving. But yeah, we have programmings stored within our cells, stored within our subconscious memory banks, within the body. And they are unconscious to us. So they're not in our, forward conscious centers. We're not aware of them, but they're there in the unconscious, and they express themselves through the subconscious, which actually has command of our body. And so we literally find ourselves being hijacked by these impressions which are stored within us, which are just be part of the matrix of our mind. But our mind is compartmentalized due to the nature of it and its own limitations. And the goal of meditation is actually break through those different layers, so those different compartments, and to come into a fuller knowledge and understanding and awareness of yourself. Release the parts of you which are in error or in fear or distorted, caught up with negativity, because they're usually aspects of ourselves which are turned against us and turned against the life force. which is beneficent. So why would we want to be turned against something which is so beneficent for us? So by being able to penetrate through these different aspects of consciousness and arrive at a deeper aspect of us anchored more in truth rather than in denial and deflection or exaggeration or diminishment and what have you, we become more powerful. We become more able to express ourselves in the world and take command of ourselves in the world. And we heal because we're liberating life energy.
Oh, that's amazing to hear that. But then just knowing what kinds of meditations are out there is really important, because I feel that there's so many different types. I went to a workshop once and a gentleman that was running it said that he's actually learnt 65 different types of meditation, and then he created his own. Well, there you go. That's number 66. And then for myself in my programs that I've created, Dunk the Funk and Make It and Break It programs, I teach a clarity ritual to help people start from somewhere that don't know how to meditate or never tried it. So again, that's just a ritual to help clear the mind of uncertainty, just so they can start their day on the right foot. And then so when I started researching myself, looking at all the different types of meditations, what was really significant was guided meditation is one of them that is an umbrella for all these different types of meditations. People have got podcasts that is an audio where they speak to you and get you to relax, get in touch with your breath. I mean, I even do it in my salon when I'm about to do a facial treatment. I guide them through a meditation. That's just to relax them. So these guided meditations aren't really the ones that I feel are going to heal the mind and body fully. They're just going to help to relax you and may help when you're in a traumatic situation or you've come out of one, to help you to release that nervousness or the anxiety. The meditation I'd love to talk about now is the somatic meditations, the ones that where you experience it within your body rather than your mind. So it gets you out of your head. And that's the ones that we both do. In a sense, your one more so than mine. Vipassana. Did I pronounce that right this time?
Yeah, that's correct.
Excellent. So I'd love for you to explain this type of meditation and also how it will help to prevent illness and disease, how it will be good for you as a self-care, and also where they can learn it as well, to give them a rundown of why they should be doing this. Well, we already know we're talking about self-care here, but this is a type of meditation that's been around for a very long time. Yet I only just started learning about it the last couple of years. So I'd love for you to shed some light.
Sure. Well, Vipassana is actually a Sanskrit word which means, if I have it right, but in effect it means awareness of the truth as it is. So it's a way of observing your body and the movement of energy consciousness through your body, which is the truth of who you are here in the moment. So it's a way of observing that without any judgment, without any deflection, and just being completely present. So it's somatic because you have to observe and follow sensation within you. So it's not an exercise which is taking place purely in the mental body, which is quite abstract and doesn't involve the truth of your experience here in the world. You know, it's very much involves, your physical body. So it's not abstract. It's real. And I suppose if you go deeper into esoteric sciences or metaphysics, you discover, and even the greatest scientists know this, that, and quantum physics is now proving it, that there's really no separation between thought, between our mind, what we're thinking, and our body. In fact, mind and the body are synonymous. which is why in healing circles they call it the body mind. You know, in Western medicine, they tend to separate the mind and treat it with psychiatry, and they separate the body and they treat it with allopathics, both of which are disastrous with the type of drugs that are being used. You know, whereas the Orientals or the Easterners would they view the body mind as a complete whole. And in fact, that's what Tantra or yoga is. It's the union of those aspects which are separate, which is the masculine, feminine, the body and the mind, the spirit and matter, and so forth. So you can't heal the mind if you're not going to work on healing the body, and you can't heal the body if you're not going to be working on healing the mind. And in fact, they're not separate anyway. So as you work on one, if you're doing it authentically, it's going to be positively affecting the other. And as you work on the other, it's also going to be positively affecting, you know, the one. So it's like, but only if you're doing it authentically. And that's kind of like how you know if you are practicing authentically, because you're going to have results. And sure, we can fool ourselves, but, you know, that's all we're doing, fooling ourselves. And if that's what you want, great. But, you know, that's not good enough for me. So,
I'm very much the same on what you're saying there. That's why I had to mention before that guided meditations are a head experience, and that when the mind and the body are the same, if you're just working on the head, the body's not going to benefit from that when you're doing those types of meditation.
I think if you're working on the head, while ignoring the body, then you're basically running a forcing current to try and actually control your reality with the ego, which uses a lot of energy and may or may not be successful depending on how much your ego is in alignment with that higher self of yours, the deeper self. Because if it's not in alignment at all, you're not going to have any joy. You're not going to make any headway.
I do come across a lot of people that meditate, yet they've got a lot of pain, mind, body, spirit, external, internal. And when I've spoken to them about their meditation technique, some are doing, for example, the one that you did, Vipassana. Yet what I'm noticing is they're not doing it authentically, like you're saying. They're not practicing it daily. They're just doing it whenever they feel like it. And they think they know what they're doing, but they're not feeling it. Just like with the technique I use, which is transcendental meditation, I do it morning and afternoon, but there are stages in my life, like school holidays, that I don't do it. As my daughter is still in training, she does a different one called Word of Wisdom. So she has her sound, her mantra, and I'd like to touch on this now. TM, Transcendental Meditation, is when you think of a mantra, a sound, and again, it's a Sanskrit, not word, but it's a Sanskrit philosophy teaching where when it means to be effortless, and you sit and it just comes to you, the mantra comes to you effortlessly and doesn't sound like any other word that I've ever heard before, and everyone gets given their mantra by their teacher. And so for my daughter, she's given a word of wisdom, and she's got 5 minutes to walk or do an activity while she's thinking of her word. But this is more like a guided meditation, because she's not feeling into it, but she doesn't learn the actual sit down meditation till she's 10. So she's 8 now. And when she's 10, she'll sit for 10 minutes to do it. But for now, the practice for her is just getting to do it morning and afternoon. So during school holidays, it's always been very tricky for the both of us, because we start for the first day, 4 days. We do it. By the 5th day, we drop off the morning. By the 6th, the afternoon. 2 weeks have gone by and we're like, wow, that went really fast, and now we've got to get back into practice. So what I've noticed the difference when I do my meditation compared to when I don't do my meditation, when I'm not meditating, I actually notice that a lot of stuff comes up for me, and people around me start to act weird, and I start to, a lot of the trauma that I've experienced in my past starts to play again. I start to fall into the story, and I spiral down into maybe like a little victim role playing. However, when I meditate, I don't experience that. And it's only because, well, it hasn't changed. The people around me are still treating me the same way, Darren, and the people around are still doing the same thing. But during my meditation, my body releases the fears and the anxiety, and I can feel it because it's in my stomach, the nervousness. My legs twitch. I sometimes, when I do my 20 minutes meditating, I fall asleep because I get into this chronic fatigue, but that's actually a good sign that I'm releasing more deeply the stress that's within my body. And so what I've noticed this week, because we've gone back to school now, I've been very tired, and after all my meditating, and it's a good sign that it's coming out of my system now from the last 2 weeks. And the people around me, I find they're not as reactive, but they're still doing what they're doing. It's, I'm not reacting. It's me. I'm changing. So these two techniques, Vipassana and transcendental meditation, is what I recommend for people to learn. And what I'll do is I'll upload the websites so that everyone can have a look to see where they can learn this. For me, there are centres around. In Melbourne, there's one in Reservoir. There's also one, I think, out in Paran. I think there's 3 centres, but there's teachers all over the world. So wherever you are in the world, I can find a link for you so you can contact the centre. However, for Darren's meditation,
there's only one place I would encourage people to go. It's a website, www.dharma.org, which is DHAMMA. So it's spelt in the Sanskrit version of Dharma, which is kind of like service. And it's if you go to that website, there are centers all over the world where you can actually go and learn for free, but you'll have to volunteer 10 or 11 days of your time, really 11 days of your time, because it takes 10 days to learn the technique, but it's free. You can learn it for free. And
that's amazing, because TM, you learn it in, from memory, 3 to 4 days, and there is a payment. But the payment goes to Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, his foundation, and it goes to the teachers as well, I believe, because how would they make a living? I will look into that. But there is a payment. At my daughter's school, though, it was a bit different when you enroll your child into the school. It's very interesting that Vipassana is free, but you got to give yourself those 11 days to learn. That's quite interesting.
Yeah, well, it takes that long to learn the technique. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to go deep enough and actually start to experience the technique. And like anything, if you treat it superficially, you'll just get superficial results and a superficial understanding. And they've been teaching it this way for literally thousands of years. So, but you can donate once you've done a course. You're not allowed to donate until you've actually done a course. And so that you have experienced the benefit of the course, you understand what you're donating to. And because it's so effective, and because people have such profound experiences, and it's not an easy thing to do, to take a vow of silence for 10 days, and commit to no killing, no stealing, no lies, no intoxicants, no sexual misconduct for 10 days, which are the precepts for wholesome living anyway. And then when you sit there and you sit for, you're meditating for up to 10 and a half hours a day, and you start to become very sensitive. And so, yes, what you encounter is pain, because pain is simply, if I can use a metaphysical term, is a denial of the truth within you. Pain is an interruption or a stagnation of the life force. So if your goal is to awaken and free and liberate life force energy within you, so in other words, you have to encounter the parts of you within yourself where you hold it back, where you suppress it, where you have locked it up, and that is the pain within you, which you must penetrate with your consciousness. And so, yes, it's going to feel painful, but once you penetrate through it and you liberate it, the free flow of life force energy is blissful. It's pleasure. And then you have that energy available in your being then for creative output. So it's kind of like, if you want to be in denial and you want to suppress your pain and bury your pain, you can do that. All you do is end up with numbness, and you lock away your creative potential because you bury that flow of life force, which is otherwise locked up, dealing and holding onto and processing all that pain. And so you don't liberate yourself, or you don't become free of it just by burying it and locking it away. All you do is wind up using a lot of life force energy, holding it at bay, keeping yourself numb when you could be using it for really living a powerful and expressive life. But we're only able to penetrate that and face it as we literally become ready or mature enough or fed up, I suppose, with life as we're living it. And then we make that choice to take that plunge. And you can only face as much as you're willing to face at any one moment in time. But that's the aspect of self-actualization, and training yourself is to progressively prepare yourself to go deeper and deeper and deeper and liberate yourself from those aspects of you which are kind of like locked in the dark. That's why we call it the darkness. That's why we call it also the shadow work. And as we liberate ourselves from those parts which are repressed and suppressed, so we grow more into the light, and then we use that to give our service into the world. So that's the benefit, and that's why it's a tool of the various spiritual masters who have walked this planet, and why I think actually it would benefit everybody.
I agree with you, and I'm getting this feeling now that some people may say, but I'm not ready to do 10 days of silence. So if those people have that kind of feeling, they've never meditated or don't know where to start, Darren, what is a good idea for them just to get them to take those steps?
Well, anything can be a meditation so long as you're prepared to become present. So whether you're surfing, and a master of their craft or a master of their art will be a master because they're fully present and they're fully engaged with whatever it is that they're doing. But as long as you're doing only that with what comes easy for you, you're not really progressing. So you've got to do it also in those areas that don't come easy for you. And so you're always engaging the parts of you which would actually kind of like disconnect from reality. You're getting those parts to engage with reality and deal with those aspects of you that you find challenging. And in that way, you're kind of like evolving and becoming a more well-rounded human being. But becoming more present. And if you want to talk about, meditation in the traditional sense, you can simply find a place to sit, that is quiet and relatively free of distractions, and just try and become more present. And usually the simplest practice is just to focus on your breath. And as the breath leaves your nostrils, with your mouth closed, and the passage of air in and out of your nostrils, and feeling the breath as it lands on your top lip, and just being aware of the breath and just staying with the breath, because the breath is actually the link between your conscious mind and your unconscious. Because at the same time, you can control your breath consciously with your mind, and yet also too, when your mind is elsewhere, the unconscious, it starts to behave autonomously, and it functions, according to its own rhythm. So the conscious mind and the unconscious mind meet at the breath. So where the breath is a very powerful tool for your awareness training. And in fact, working with the breath is one of the most powerful healing modalities if you know how to do it. That's a whole different topic.
Yeah, I think it's a really good starting point for everyone that hasn't meditated or doesn't know how to meditate or wants to start doing it now, because this is one of the principles with self-care, what I highly recommend people to be doing to implement it into their life and make it a daily ritual. And so if you've never done meditation, Darren's suggestion is perfect. I always say that as well, Darren, just to sit and concentrate on your breath, breathing in and out, and even starting with 1 minute, and yes, being present as well. I like that idea, to keep reminding yourself to just slow down and just take that 1 minute out of your day, start that way every day, and then maybe increase it to a couple more minutes. And doing research. So my recommendation is to research. Start Google searching what is meditation and the different types of meditation. And then on social media, Instagram or Facebook, start looking for pages to follow, groups to join where people are meditators, so that you can be around like-minded people. And if you have questions, then you can start asking people around you what they're doing, and start the conversation to increase your knowledge on meditation, so that you can help yourself, put yourself first, and be present. So much. It was amazing. Thanks, Darren. And now I'm taking a break now. I don't know. I stopped for a minute. Okay. All right, so I want to get into your program, but I also want to bring up how I'm going to bring that into. Should just ask. Darren, you have a program coming up next year in February, and you're now creating this program, which is called 120-day regeneration.
The 120-day blood rejuvenation challenge, really.
That's amazing. And so one of the areas that you touch on in this challenge is meditation. So I'd love to know the link, regenerating or rejuvenating our blood and meditation.
Well, it's not that meditation itself directly rejuvenates the blood, although it could if you went deep enough with it. And this again depends on the person's willingness to go, or how deep they're willing to go. Again, if they're just prepared to work with the superficial level of the mind, they might get beneficial effects from the ego level, and there's nothing wrong with that. But they're not going to really change themselves on a deep level. So you have to be prepared to pull off the superficial layers and go beyond the superficial layers. So in effect, you have to die to those superficial layers, which means you have to face the fear of that death every single time. But that's the price for gaining access to the deeper self. And the deeper self is a far more powerful and accurate navigator of your life. I mean, it is you on a far, far deeper level, free of the mental conditionings and fears and traumas and sufferings that we have either acquired or been programmed with. So because the body and mind aren't separate, as you engage with the mind deeply, you're literally penetrating your field of being. So energy and consciousness are two sides of the same coin, just the same as mind and body are. Consciousness impresses energy to shape it and create it. So as the field of being is in your mind, the deeper mind, so is the field of being in your body. And it's literally as you start to explore that or meet that, you'll find that you are encountering aspects of yourself which don't abide in truth, which are turned against the life force. And these are the parts which create pain, which create disease, which create suffering, because the natural law of life is to liberate, to flow, to regenerate, to grow, to evolve. And anywhere we have built some type of unconscious barrier to that, we have a blockage, or we have an inhibition, or we have a kink to the flow of that life energy. So meditation is an ability to go in there deeply and start to remove those kinks and blocks, and allow that life force energy to flow. And literally, you feel that within you. You feel it. It's a visceral feeling experience. This is not some abstract imagination. You feel it. It will literally, your body will respond. You'll feel tremendous pain followed by tremendous bliss. You'll literally feel it let go. You'll feel the energy rush through you. Parts of your body will become stronger again. Ailments and illnesses that you had will disappear. You'll feel lighter. Your face will literally start to change its expression as muscle groups start to let go and visibly relax. All sorts of amazing things happen when you start to bring the mental being that you believe you are into congruence with the physical being that you really are, and they start to become aligned and coherent, because your physical being must obey the laws of life, otherwise it couldn't exist. Our mental being, our ego, which likes to abstract itself from the truth and abstract itself from everything, can often live in a world of deception, of either its own making or other people's makings, because it's no longer linked to the feeling sense, which will give them accurate feedback as to how life is actually performing and operating in their body. So you have to be prepared to engage with that feeling sense. And most people don't want to feel. They're quite happy numbing themselves out or avoiding it or distracting themselves from it. But you have to be prepared to feel if you want to heal. So to regenerate, to rejuvenate, you have to be willing to be in truth. You must be prepared to feel the feedback of life within you. And as you do that, and you do that through a process of meditation where you start to peel back those layers which are in defense of it, and that's challenging. But the rewards for those who sincerely seek and apply far outweigh the pain of the journey, and no journey is without pain.
And that's true. No journey is without pain. So if a person is unwell and they need to regenerate and rejuvenate, they do have options. Either way they turn, there's going to be pain there. There's going to be challenges. There's going to be struggles. So this is why I bring meditation into the self-care, because it is a natural, effortless technique that you can take anywhere in the world. Once you're taught it, you don't need to go to the doctors to get it prescribed, which is what I love about it. And if you're practicing it daily and you make it a ritual, and there's cultures out there that it's a ritual for them, they're born into it. Where I'm from, my culture, meditation is unknown of. So for me to need to do it every day in my life, and then teaching my daughter as well, then I choose that over any other type of journey. I rather, if I'm unwell, when I start to get a cough or I can feel within myself that I'm running down because I haven't rested properly, or I've taken on stress and allowed myself to absorb it, I do my meditation and I bounce back much quicker than if I didn't. So I've prevented myself from taking antidepressants, antibiotics, going into surgery. My story there is last year I nearly ended up in hospital because I had liver pain, and still today I don't know if my stones came from a blockage in my liver or they were sitting in my gallbladder, but I ended up doing a liver gallbladder flush, and I released 3 pea-size stones, bile stones. So I'm really impressed that I was able to do that. And in Western medicine, they were not able to pick up on it. And they said that I would have to go in and have a camera go down my throat. And I said, well, if I can prevent that from happening, I'm going to try a different way. So I used my principles. The principle of water is the next one that we're going to be talking about. So that water, drinking water and a lot of water, flushing it out of my system really worked. And meditation was the other one, just every day making certain that I was present and removing the anger that was sitting in my liver, because that's when it happened, Darren. I was very angry, something had happened, and I just stored it in my liver. So I needed to express it. And so through meditation is where I was able to release it and express it out of my system. So that I would choose that. I'm sure you would choose that as well, Darren.
Any day. Like, I don't, yeah. Self-actualization is a very huge part of my life in all areas, but particularly health. Well, once you understand natural law and that health is your creation and disease is also your creation, you know, I can't sit back and ignore it. I mean, to ignore it is to deny the flow of life within me. And why would you want to do that? But
so to conclude this, I would love to just know, in your program that you're creating, we are going to learn about the natural law and
well, natural law is a very deep subject. So really the first stage is to introduce people to the benevolence of life by starting to live by certain principles, which will get them to engage with that wisdom within them and to realize that there actually is an intelligence that is them, that they've just been in denial of or in fear of, literally, because we've been programmed in our culture to fear it. You know, that's the gift of the pharmaceutical industry, the chemical industry, which is all about poisoning life rather than understanding it, you know.
so meditating will help us to, like you said at the start, be more authentic, be more true to ourselves, and we're going to see,
start to feel what's real.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the body doesn't lie. It can't. Our egos do, but the body can't.
That's amazing. I love to finish off now on that note, that the body doesn't lie, and meditation will help heal you and give you the self-care that you need to bring out the best in you, which is your truth.
Yep.
So
Exactly.
Thank you, Darren, for being
Thank
a
you,
part
Lisa.
of my program. The first week is the principle of meditation, and so tomorrow I will be active in the group to answer all your questions from this evening. So if you haven't watched this yet, that's okay. Still put your questions under here and I will answer them when I'm back online, when I'm active. Thanks, Darren. Have a lovely day.
Thank you, Lisa, and you.
Excellent. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.